Next on BYUSN, it's a game day eve for BYU football at Boise State. Is it the last one with the Broncos ever?
Plus, is the BYU football season already on ice? Or would a win over Boise State smooth things over? Let's go. I mean, really, let's go, man.
Woo! Spencer on a Zamboni in Boise. Wow. Okay, there he is. Hey, we got a show to do, Spence. Get off the ice. Welcome to BYU Sports Nation, presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere. It is Friday, November 4th. Spencer is trying to get off the ice there. I'm Jarom Jordan. He's with Jared Jacobs, our homie, Ad Gold Yeller, who does those Lego videos. Good to see Jared involved. We'll get Spencer back up and running here in a second. Why is he at an ice rink? Coming up on today's show, Petros Papadakis, Fox analyst, who's on the call for the game tomorrow on FS2. What type of game does he expect in Boise? How good are the Broncos? We know the defense is great. They're 6-2. They played Oregon State and got smashed. Like, how good is Boise State? They're good, but how good? Don't forget the fondest memories of BYU and Boise in the rivalry. Is this the last game for the foreseeable future? That's a yes, but do you want Boise State back on the schedule? Plus our game day guarantees, game notes, and Fantasy Friday. Am I actually going to get a win? And now we bring Spencer back in, who hustled over to his spot. Spence, that is the first time we've ever featured a Zamboni on BYU Sports Nation. Congratulations.
Hey, we've had some firsts over the past month, Jarom. You know, we were hanging out at a NASCAR track in Martinsville, Virginia, a couple of weeks ago prior to the game against Liberty. And it just so worked out that there's a minor league hockey team that plays at the basement of the team hotel for BYU football. With the weather being miserable outside, we thought, why not come to Idaho Central Arena, the home of the Idaho Steelheads here in Boise, Idaho. And yes, the Zamboni driver is the man you mentioned, our guy, Jared Jacobs, who has probably gotten more face time on BYU Sports Nation than some other BYU prominent athletes, but that's neither here nor there, man. Let's go.
And you don't have to tell me about the Steelheads. Big game with the Rapid City Rush tonight, 4-1, 8 points on the season. Like, the Steelheads are going, so that's pretty exciting. So, yeah, the first time in a hockey rink for and the boys are out there practicing suddenly right after the Zamboni. So they got out there quick.
Yes, they are. Yet. Well, I had to get out the ice so I didn't get hit by the pucks. Speaking of, I got a souvenir for you. So
nice.
I'm bringing you a puck home, okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Go Steelheads, baby. Go Steelheads.
Yes.
So forgive the
Utah
pucks
Grizzlies
smashing
guy,
against the boards and there's going to be some, you know, there are grown men playing hockey behind us, and that's going to be part of the ambiance of today's show.
Somewhere Adam Sandler is back there getting ready for hockey season. Amazing.
Indeed he is. Indeed he is. Yeah, and you know what? Gold Yeller looks like Adam Sandler's caddy from Happy Gilmore, right? Jared looks like that guy. So worlds colliding here.
Okay, he kind of does. All right, let's go to headlines. BYU football looks to snap a 4-game losing streak as the Cougars head to Boise today to take on the Broncos, winners of 4 straight. Pre-game on BYU TV and BYU Radio tomorrow at 5 Eastern time.
Another busy weekend for Cougars in the NFL. Kyle Van Noy, Michael Davis, and the Los Angeles Chargers visit their old friend Tyler Algier and the Atlanta Falcons in the ATL. Zach Wilson and the Jets, huge test as they host Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Jamal Williams and the Lions take on Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. His new team and his former team colliding once again.
Number 18, BYU women's volleyball took care of business at San Francisco yesterday in 4, led by Aaron Livingston's 21 kills. Kate Pryor had a career-high 10 kills as well. BYU plays at Santa Clara tomorrow.
15th-ranked BYU women's soccer wraps up the regular season tomorrow night. They'll do so at LMU as a heavy favorite. Now, to win the West Coast Conference outright, BYU obviously needs to win at LMU, but they also need Santa Clara to lose to Pepperdine, which is not entirely out of the question. Tough road game for the Broncos. The LMU game for BYU begins at 10 Eastern. You can listen live on BYU Radio and the BYU Radio app.
A tie between Santa Clara and Pepperdine and a BYU win would equal a co-championship, so that would do it as well. Women's tennis splits up between the ITA Championships and the Rice Invitational today, where the Cougars are 8-0 in singles yesterday, 4-3 in doubles.
How about some swim and dive news? The men's and women's teams from BYU take on UNLV in Provo tomorrow. Of course, coming off a big win against TCU last month. This is the last home meet of the season, 11 a.m. Mountain Time start.
And Paul Lasike is starting at inside center for the United States rugby team in Sunday's first of 3 matches in Dubai for the final spot in next year's Rugby World Cup. They play Kenya. They've got to win this tournament to make the Rugby World Cup in France next year, so good luck to the boys in red, white, and blue. All rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending. Tomorrow marks the end of an era, Spencer, one that began in 2012 when the Cougars and Broncos decided, hey, we're going to play every year, and they signed a long-term deal. It's been awesome. It's my favorite series that BYU signed, more than, say, 2 games, right? Quality games every year. ESPN or Fox involved. This year on FS2 because of the World Series. Wish it was FS1. But it's been sweet. Kalani Sitake likes it, and he wants it more in the future.
Yeah, and the rivalry is big time for us. So we're looking forward to this game. And just like we had with the Utah State game, you know, we've got to keep the wagon wheel home. And this one, we're trying to keep the bragging rights from. We just don't know when we'll play them again, but I hope we can play them in the future. But for now, it's just this is it.
This is it is right. And in the Big 12, BYU will likely play 1 Power 5 a year, most of the time Utah, a Group of 5 team, hopefully on the road or at home every time and never on the road, and then an FCS team at home. So, Spencer, do you want BYU to schedule Boise State in the future?
As long as Boise State is the quality program that BYU would schedule in non-conference, I'm fine with that. But that would mean that it would replace a game with Utah. So I put Boise State in that kind of realm, a non-conference scheduling philosophy, because they're a really good program and a tough game. It will always be a tough game. So if BYU decides to schedule Boise State in the future, then that should probably be the Tier A game, then play a mediocre Group of 5 team, and then an FCS foe. So if that's how BYU goes about it, I'm fine. I wouldn't say that I want Boise State over Utah, but if Utah opts for somebody else and BYU needs a good game and it's close and there's regional ties and we got the rivalry backdrop right now, why not? What I don't want, and I think you'll agree with me here, is BYU to play Utah and then have to play Boise State as well, and then an FCS. Then I think the non-conference becomes too tough when you throw in 9 conference games in the Big 12. So, yeah, I'd love to see Boise State on a future schedule if it comes to a scenario where they're the toughest non-conference opponent that BYU has, and it's not tough to travel to. I like the regionality of it, and I've really enjoyed this rivalry game. I know you have, but scheduling philosophies totally have to change when you go into a Power 5 conference. Do you want to see Boise State on the schedule in any way, shape, or form moving forward?
No, there's no room, because I would like Utah every year as the Power 5 game for BYU. Tom Hobel told us there will be a few years where Utah doesn't play BYU. They're not this and next year, right, with Florida. And then in the future, BYU will choose sometimes not to play a Utah, because maybe they'll take a 2-game series with Miami in the future, or whatever equivalent in Power 5. I don't see a way where Boise State BYU would have the premier game be Boise State. I just don't see it. So yeah, I don't see a Boise State game in BYU's future as long as they're still going like this. And they're good. They're good. I don't know if they're very good. They're definitely not great, right? Obviously BYU's struggling. But yeah, I respect Boise State so much. I don't want them on the schedule anymore, because BYU needs 2 wins at least every non-conference, Spence. Because if BYU goes 4-5 in league, that's a 6-6 season. We can't guarantee that BYU is going to have a winning record in the Big 12 like quickly and every year. It's going to be a tough haul. BYU is going to work up to that for sure. Rebuild next year. Well, this year ends up being a rebuild without us thinking it was until literally this moment. But yeah, I don't need Boise State on the schedule in the future. I respect them so much. I don't want them on.
Well, would it be the worst thing? Now, and bear with me for a moment. If we're putting together a BYU schedule, let's say 5 to 7 years down the road, if Boise State were the toughest non-conference opponent, knowing that BYU has 9 Power 5 games guaranteed in the Big 12, and they don't play any Power 5 games in the non-conference 3, would that be the worst thing? Would that not, say, give BYU a better chance to get off to a quick start and still win a game against Boise, which will carry, we think at that time, some respect. Would that be the worst thing if Boise State was the best non-conference opponent, if we're talking about getting wins and piling wins early in the season?
No, but even me, boo-hoo, the schedule's too hard guy, still wants one P5 on the schedule in non-conference. And BYU has clearly shown that it wants a P5 on the schedule in non-con. It's an interesting game early in September. It might be the only, like BYU may have no P5 non-conference at home every other year, right? That's probably what's going to happen. Tom Hummel said he's open to multiple P5s, which I think is a little crazy, honestly, because they're already going to play 9 every year. So, yeah, I just don't see BYU not playing a Power 5 in non-conference, especially because you've already scheduled a bunch out to like 2031 anyway. So it's just canceling everybody but the one game a year.
No, I think you're right. I do not expect it. But if BYU has an opportunity to put Boise State on the schedule in the future and they need that game, maybe.
They don't need it.
So, yeah, it's kind of a bummer that it's going away. It's been a fun deal. It worked perfectly in Independence.
It was good now.
I appreciate that Boise State wanted to play the game every year. Yes, it was a fantastic gesture by Boise State to do this with BYU, and it created a really fun, budding rivalry that I feel like is a full-on rivalry right now. So it kind of stinks that it's going away, but circumstances are such that BYU probably doesn't need to add that game because things are going to get so much more difficult. So, yeah, I would like to see it at some point come back for a one-off, but it just feels unlikely.
A one-off, so it'd be in Provo. The Power 5 team dictates that.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. Like, probably. Or like, and again,
neutral side, we play in Brigham City.
A 2-for-1 is something that is often
They never do a 2-for-1 with BYU. No way.
But exactly. No, they wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
They wouldn't do it. So it just feels way too unlikely
it's
that
over
that
tomorrow.
would be the case.
End of an era.
All right.
It was awesome. Thank you, Boise State.
Now, speaking of it being over tomorrow, Jarom, the last contest for BYU at Boise State. Crazy. We got to make some game day guarantees for a rivalry game that is going to carry some weight for who knows how long. Maybe forever.
It's time for your
Did these teams ever play again?
Guaranteed. Yeah, right. To be wrong. Wait, is Mike still on?
All right, game day guarantees, Jarom. Recapping the numbers, I am 14 for 27 on the season. Over 50%. I'll take it. You are 7 for 27.
7.
Combined 21 for 54 on our guarantees.
I got to mail it in.
Season.
I'm working too hard here.
Yeah. Hey, you're 30%, bro. 30% is better than where you were a couple of weeks ago.
Not good enough.
What do you got for us today with your game day guarantees?
I'm review the numbers. I'm challenging that. Number one, BYU will have under 400 yards of total offense. BYU's had less than 400 in 4 of the last 5. Boise State gives up 232 a game. I just don't see how BYU is going to go north of 400. Hopefully they do. That'd be great. I'm happy to be wrong. Jaron Hall will throw 2 touchdown passes or more. He has 2+ in every game this year. 2+. That's what he does. Or someone does. Sorry, Chase Roberts had the Baylor one. Correction on that. And then George Holani, the running back for Boise State, is really good. He'll score a touchdown and get 100 yards because he's averaging 116 the last 5, and he has 6 touchdowns the last 3 games. Receiving or rushing, right? So those are my guarantees.
Yeah, George Holani's really good, and if we're being frank, BYU's run defense has not been great, so that feels like a solid pick in that last one. Okay, to my 3 guarantees. Number 1, BYU will not fumble the ball away to Boise State. No turnovers via fumble, and I'm doing this because last year it cost BYU the game. 4 turnovers, 3 fumbles at home when Boise State upset BYU. BYU's not going to fumble the ball away to Boise, even in rainy, yucky conditions at Albertson Stadium. Number 2, BYU will pass for 200+ yards. And I know some of you are thinking, oh, super aggressive, Spencer. Way to go out on a limb. You know what? Boise State only gives up 133 pass yards a game. Wild number. Their defense is really good. And it's going to be raining a lot. I still think BYU will find a way to manufacture 200+ passing yards. Number 3, in the Lopini-Katoa redemption game. He will score a touchdown, Jarom.
Let's go!
Lopini Katoa is going to score against the Broncos tomorrow. Redemption for Lopini.
Somebody's going to score a rushing touchdown. It's got to be Lopini. All right, let's hear from you and Voice of the Nation, our question of the day. Papadakis says he wants to see Boise State on the BYU schedule in the future. I do not. Spencer says, well, maybe after joining the Big 12. But do you, BYU Uniform Tracker on Twitter? Maybe not every season, but every other season for sure. Great regional rivalry that's been very entertaining during independence. Yeah, it's been good now as a divorcee, but when BYU gets married and moves to the other neighborhood, you're still hanging out with those friends. You know, it's going to be a different situation. At Cougar on Twitter. We need Boise State like we need Utah State. There's no upside. Only bad things can happen when playing those games. What? As we are struggling to make a bowl game this year, it doesn't feel like a good idea. Hashtag never play Utah State again. Well, yeah, I agree with that. With Utah State in particular. Boise State's more of the competitive nature.
This became
Utah State
about
is
the
the
Aggies
injury.
again?
Yeah, suddenly how'd the Aggies sneak in here? What's going on here? Bored up in Logan? Come on now.
Seriously. All right, Jarom, it is time for a 4-game losing streak for BYU to end. The Cougars and Broncos tomorrow in Boise. I don't care about the conditions. Let's play football. Get things right for BYU. Game day will get you ready at 5 Eastern live on BYU TV tomorrow. Anything and everything you need to know.
It was news to me that you're actually going to be on that show because I thought you just went to go watch the Idaho Steelheads tonight. But anyway, coming up, Fox Sports analyst Petros Papadakis will tell us how good Boise State is. He's on the call tomorrow night. This is BYU Sports Nation.
Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork sells Ford vehicles including the F-150, the pickup designed for work and play. Tim Daly Ford maintains a large inventory, providing more choices for selecting an F-150 with the power and engineering to carry and tow heavy loads. The F-150's design offers comfort, safety, and a range of options to choose from. Think Ford, think Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork.
BYU Food to Go's convenient location at 2191 North Canyon Road in Provo makes bringing popular BYU foods to your next event easy. Everything's ready when you need it at the drive and load pickup. You drive in and they load no matter the weather. And stop in the on-site creamery for great BYU chocolate milk and ice cream. BYU Food to Go, bringing campus to your table. Call for details, 801-422-5001.
Let's kick off AFR on BYU TV.
What they did in that fourth quarter was not unexpected in my book.
Everyone did their job perfectly, and it resulted in, obviously, a touchdown.
Who knew that he had these kind of hands?
And right at the snap of the football, they both go right downhill. And that was the end of that. He knocked him down pretty quickly.
Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation on a game day eve in Studio B and from Boise. Jarom and Spencer Linton, great to have you with us. We now bring in Fox Sports analyst Petros Papadakis, the captain of the self-proclaimed worst team in USC history. He is on the call tomorrow. Petros, what's up, man? Great to have you on the show.
Always great to be with you guys, and thank you. It's great to talk to you again. And I love the great state of Utah and football in the state of Utah. So looking forward to this matchup. This has always been a good one, and I hope it doesn't go away forever.
Yeah, and that's something we were just talking about is do we want Boise State in the future? Personally, I do not, because in the Big 12, BYU needs to schedule some wins, especially that G5 spot where you probably have one P5, one G5, and an FCS. I would say no, because Boise State is a quality team. Now, BYU's needed this game as an independent, and it's been awesome. This has been my favorite series that BYU signed up for. But it sounds like you want it in the future for BYU.
Well, you know, I mean, for me, I'm not counting wins for anybody. I like good football. And, I understand, there's two ways to look at it. One is, where are we going to be at the end of the season and how viable are we going to be? And obviously that's a huge deal and projects to the future. But the other one is just the proximity of the schools, a lot of LDS action in the state of Idaho, as you know, and it's a great fit. And there's a lot of respect, especially between these two coaching staffs. So I hate to see it kind of go by the wayside, but I understand your points. I live in the world, so I get it.
Petros, Boise State got off to a nightmarish start. And, in turn, BYU was playing really good football early in the season. They've kind of reversed courses, the two, and they've switched places. But we're still trying to figure out just how good Boise State is because their strength of schedule is 119th right now, according to ESPN's Football Power Index. How good is Boise State, even though outside of Oregon State, they haven't really been tested by high-level college football teams?
Well, I think, Boise State is a team that has been going through a transition, just like a lot of teams, especially in the Mountain West Conference. You have Colorado State trying to become an air raid team. Nevada's trying to become a more defensive team. Fresno had to figure out an identity without Jake Hayner and went 2-2. And Boise had a similar kind of crisis. They went down and lost to UTEP and fired their offensive coordinator, Tim Plow, as you know, and they kind of changed the identity of their team. They went with Talon Green, who I really like. He's a big, strong guy. Is he the best thrower in the conference? Probably not. But they can get that big body moving, and he's fast. I mean, he can run away from people on the edge, and that really just opened things up for them because different from BYU, Boise's best players are on defense. I mean, they have a lot of veteran guys who played a lot of great football. Jackson Cravens, Matlock, Dimitri Washington, J.L. Skinner, Tyreek Jones. I mean, they have a lot of great names of guys who've played at a high level for a long time that you guys have seen. So they started to play more to that side of the equation, and they changed their identity. And in that identity change has come victory. You struggle to beat UTEP, and then all of a sudden you're controlling games in a much different way. But you're right. They haven't really played the best of the best, and it's kind of that way this year in the Mountain West. But they've had some great victories. They beat up on Air Force, who I really like a lot, and that's a hard game to prep for. And, I think they deserve that ranking. I think Andy's got them going in the right direction.
And you look at the numbers, and it's startling on defense. Top 12 in points allowed and, third downs and yards per game. Yards per game is 232. It's just like a stupid number, right? Then offensively, they're only putting up 360, 5.4 yards a play. They're giving it away 11 times. They're actually negative margin. So do you feel like BYU, which is about a touchdown underdog, has maybe a better shot than Cougar fans are thinking? Because right now people are pretty down on the Cougs.
Yeah, I understand BYU's plight here. I played on like you guys mentioned, that football team in the year 2000. I'm not sure they weren't worse than we were last year, to be honest. But we were the only one that was last in the Pac-10 at that time. But that kind of happened to us. We started the season hot, and then we had some injuries, and we started to lose games, and we started to find ways to lose games, and the confidence kind of fell out of the bottom. And we ended up playing 6, 7, 8 in a row, and you guys have done 10 in a row. So I know what that's like to see a team lose confidence and struggle to retrieve it when your depth is being tested. I think that's how Kalani put it the other day. And I think that there's always a chance. I mean, especially when you're playing a team. This is a Boise team that is not the explosive offense of yesteryear. They want to run the ball and play a much more possess the ball style of game. And I think that bodes well for what Kalani likes to do, but you have to be able to stop the run. And being unable to stop the run basically collapses you in a way, it's like knocking over the foundation of the house. At a certain point, everybody is going to go down. So, I mean, that's a huge concern. But if BYU tries to load the box and really obviously sell out to do that, this guy's good enough, and they have some downfield threats, not like last year with Khalil Shakir or anything like that, but they have some guys, and he can hurt you there. But I think the biggest part of it is just the fact that they've not been able to stop people from, the 2nd and 5, the 3rd and 2s of the world. People have just run them over as the game has gone on. And if Boise can do that, I think, people will be down on the Cougs again. But I happen to think that, like Kalani said, this kind of game gets the best out of these guys. And I think they'll bow their necks. And all it takes is a few plays here and there, and we got a heck of a football game. So we're hoping for that.
Petros Papadakis, Fox Sports analyst, is with us on BYU Sports Nation. On film, Petros, what's the most fixable thing for BYU this week that you think that they can turn around?
You have to be able to make plays down the stretch. I mean, if you play tight football and you have a bunch of people that are injured and your quarterback is under siege like Jaron has been, and you have people in and out, like they have guys that you're supposed to depend on, just haven't been there for you. I don't know what the status of Chris Brooks is in this game. I mean, there's just been a lot of people beat up. So when you need to get a first down to finish the game against ECU, you got to get the first down. You've got to find a way to make that play. And I mean, other than that, that's really what this kind of stuff comes down to. I mean, when you've dealt with a lot of adversity, and really that's what football is all about. Football is not about being perfect. We know that that's never possible, but you have to be able to overcome adversity because it comes in some form in every game, in every season, in every drive. And they just have not been able to do that. And to me, I don't think it's really a technical thing. I mean, to me, and that's the best thing about being on TV, is I don't have to solve anybody's football problems on film. But, to me, it's just you have to make one more play. You're in these tight games, and you've got to find a way to win them, to turn your team around, and to bring that victory feeling into your building for the whole week leading to the next one. When you start to lose, it builds on itself in a negative way. And I think Kalani is a great coach. I have so much respect for him and what he does. This is not the first losing season they've started to struggle with. I know he had one when he was there early. And I think that they'll be able to turn it around emotionally. I don't know if that is going to translate into a victory in this game.
We're talking to Petros Papadakis of Fox Sports. Don't ask him to solve your football problems. He's just a commentator, okay? Let's talk about the Pac-12 and the future there. Certainly BYU is interested in that because rival Utah and whatnot. Big 12 just signed a new TV deal, feels somewhat secure. How are you feeling about the future of the Pac-12 and the desire, obviously, for that league to stay together?
I love the league. As you guys know, I've worked it a long time, ever since I was, 24, 23 years old. I've been a Pac-12 football analyst, started doing the Pac-10 game of the week with Barry Tompkins, and we worked together for 10 years in 2004. So I've been, to Pullman 1,000 times and everywhere else. And, I love the league. That being said, 10 years ago, the Pac-12, they cut themselves and bled out for the last decade financially. They did a terrible deal. They got behind the wrong executive. They did not partner with people that wanted to partner with them and have money. The money with the Pac-12 would have been comparable to that of these other conferences if they had just gone with a TV partner to create their network. And maybe this is too much inside baseball for people, but basically that's been the $120 million gap between, Purdue and Oregon State and so on and so forth as the years have gone on. the Pac-10, Pac-12, whatever it is, it's been dead since that deal has been made. It's dead. They're not going to garner the same kind of money with USC and UCLA moving on to the Big Ten. They could stay together and get another TV deal. And I still love the conference, and I love the matchups, and I love the games. They're just not going to have the leverage that they would have had, that they had, 10 years ago, and that they would have with USC and UCLA involved. So they basically lost their chicken many seasons ago, I guess, would be the way to put it. And I'm not hopeful for the future, but I still love the conference, and I still love calling the games.
We'll see what happens with the new Big 12 and the new Pac-10. We'll probably still call it the Pac-12 and whatnot.
Yeah, I hate to interrupt you, but I think people should look at it in this kind of regard. Don't think of it as the Big Ten and the SEC. Think of it as Fox and ESPN and just these two big entities. And they're going to start gobbling up things on either side. And we're going to end up, out from under the umbrella of the NCAA, and college football, like it already does, is going to look dramatically different, I think, in the coming years. And wondering about, who's going to go where in this smaller scale is going to seem maybe a little bit of a moot point, so to speak, because I think more change is coming. I think you guys can feel it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we appreciate the time, Petros. Thanks for the insight. I know you called the 2020 game against Boise State. Now you're back for 2022. And have a great call on Saturday.
One day I'm coming to Provo. Every year I go up to Sundance, but not the film festival. I go to the real place, and I love it, and I see all the people coming up from Provo. I love the state of Utah, and good luck to the Cougs. God bless you guys.
Thanks, Petros. We appreciate it, man. Petros Papadakis on the call for FS2 tomorrow. We've been watching him for a long time. Fun to finally have him on the show, Spence.
Absolutely, and you know what? He was not shying away from a difficult conversation involving the Pac-12. Great insight right there, and frankly, it's kind of nice to hear the reality of that from a guy who's inside the conference.
And it's fun to see that you're at hockey practice. Indeed we are. So I apologize for pucks hitting the boards behind me, but hey, this is what we do. We're at Martinsville NASCAR Speedway a couple of weeks ago, and now we're in a hockey arena. This is how we roll. Is that goal regulation size of what?
Friends can listen to Endless Love in the Dark, right? To quote Happy Gilmore. Oh, good stuff. All right, Jarom. Up next, we get to the Cougar Whip Around, including your fondest memory of BYU and Boise State. And don't forget, tomorrow, BYU, LMU, the women and their soccer program wrap up the regular season finale. They'll be heavily favored as they try and hold on to hopes for a West Coast Conference championship.
And after the break, how many fourth downs will BYU attempt tomorrow? They've attempted a lot recently, and it hasn't gone well. We'll postulate as BYU Sports Nation continues from Boise and Provo.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
This is where we dominate. Our playground, place of business. This is our promised land, where we seek to find ourselves. And we're here to make sure the spaces our best prove themselves on appear how they should. Intermountain Healthcare, official medical provider for BYU Athletics.
Before I was a coach at BYU, or before I was even a player, I was a BYU fan.
We've got great energy as a team, but we have even better energy because of our fans, and it's absolutely magical.
When you hear the crowd roar, that makes it more exciting, more of an adrenaline rush.
The roar of the crowd, you can feel it on the floor, you can feel that energy, and it's unlike anywhere else in the country.
BYU Sports, it's all about the fans. This is BYU Sports Nation live from Boise, Idaho, and Provo, Utah. To interact with the show and get fantastic content throughout your day, you can follow us on all of the major social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok.
He is Spencer in Boise. I am Jarom in Provo. Let's whip it. Cougar Whip Around is presented by Maersk, your e-commerce logistics shipping partner.
All right, Jarom, let's start off with BYU. As a struggling team on fourth down this season, just 5 for 20 in 2022. Kalani Sitake said after the ECU game, BYU may have to work on their fourth down strategy. How many fourth downs will BYU attempt, or conversions on fourth down will they attempt tomorrow against Boise State?
Well, right now it's, half of every 2. It's struggling. I think BYU gets a fourth down conversion tomorrow, but I'm not sure. Oh, well, and it depends what the score is. If BYU's playing from behind, they're going to have to go for it a few more times than not. So I'm saying BYU's going for it 3 times, and they're going to get one of them.
In a game featuring 2 teams that are going to be so set on possessing the ball for long periods of time and like adamant on trying to run the ball, I'm expecting BYU to go for it on fourth down at least once. Now, converting that's a different story. I hope BYU is 1 for 1 on fourth down conversions tomorrow. I think they will attempt at least 1 fourth down conversion.
In reference to the 2015 BYU Boise State game, Max Tooley tweeted, "This game was the reason I committed to BYU, watching Kai Nakua do his thing." What's your fondest memory of the Boise State rivalry?
It is that 2015 game. That was unbelievable, and you and I have talked about like the loudest environments we've ever experienced at LaVell Edwards Stadium. 2015, when Mitchell Juergens caught that pass in the end zone, that place, I mean, if there were a roof at LES, it would have blown off the building. It was crazy. And then it got even louder somehow when Kai Nakua intercepted Brett Rippon and took it to the house in front of Bronco Mendenhall, who was saying, "Get down, Kai, get down." He's like, "Nah, there's the end zone. I'm going." The place was going absolutely bonkers. That's my fondest memories, probably those 2. And then, 2020 was fun, too, with Tyler Algier and company doing work.
Agreed. Those were great. Although I didn't hear it. I was in the control room getting ready for the post-game show.
Oh, my gosh. That was absolutely insane. Insane. Okay, on to the NFL, Jarom. Who's going to have more total touchdowns this week? Is it going to be Taysom Hill with the Saints or Zach Wilson with the Jets against the Bills?
It's going to be Taysom because Baltimore is 19th in points allowed, so he's going to get at least 1. Hopefully Zach gets several, but he's taking on the best team in the NFL and the #1 defense by points allowed in the NFL in Buffalo.
A little bit of a spoiler alert here, but I'm starting Taysom Hill in fantasy football this week. He's one of my starters. I'll give you the other 2 in a little bit, but because of what you just brought up, Baltimore does not have a great defense. Taysom looks really strong and fast. I think he's going to score some points this week. So I say Taysom Hill will have more total touchdowns than Zach Wilson will for the Jets against a really, really stringent Buffalo Bills defense.
Taysom has always looked strong and fast. He was born as like baby Hercules, let's be honest. Okay, will BYU women's soccer win the West Coast Conference title Saturday?
Ooh, I don't know, man. Like, BYU has been in this situation before in the recent past where they just like needed things to work out. And so I'm not going to say, no, I'm going to say, yeah. You know what? I think Pepperdine is so desperate. Pepperdine has to beat Santa Clara to get into the NCAA tournament and be that 3rd West Coast Conference team. And they're home in Malibu. So I think that they will play with some significant urgency. And I'm saying, like, to have any shot to get in the tournament, Pepperdine has to beat Santa Clara to make a case. So I think they'll handle their business at home, at least get a tie. BYU beats LMU, and so, yeah, they'll have at least a share of the conference championship.
The reason that Santa Clara started so hot is because they didn't play any of the tough teams, right? But they won 6. BYU tied 2 of the other 6. That's BYU's problem right now. BYU's going to pound LMU, who's 216 in the RPI, and then they're going to know at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon whether a win wins it or not. But BYU needs to win regardless to have a shot.
Well, we know that BYU is a virtual lock for the NCAA tournament with their RPI, which is, top 16 last I saw. Their record is really, really, I should say their strength of record is really strong. Well, they don't have as many wins as they'd like. They're a really good team. They're going to be in the tournament, Jarom. How many games will they host is the question.
1, the first round. You kind of got to be top 8 in the country to be a 1 or 2 seed and host that tournament. Although it does depend who wins here and there, right? BYU hosted the 4th round, the Elite 8 last year, because there were some upsets. BYU upset Virginia, USC lost, and so on. BYU was a 4 seed, I believe, and still hosted, so someone else as well. But yeah, BYU as high as 17 in the RPI as of this week, and LMU way down there, so that may go down for BYU because they're going to play a bad team. But yeah, top 20 is great, and you host a first round, then you probably have to go on the road for second and third.
Yeah, I think you're right. Probably one game that BYU will host at Southfield, which is fantastic. A home game, get it going. It was similar to what they dealt with last year, and then see how the chips fall after that, and just maybe there's a second game at Southfield somewhere down the line.
Perhaps next Friday, we'll see. Louisville got a slap on the wrist after alleged payments to 2 recruits. While Dave Rose lost 2 years' worth of wins, and Yoli Childs had an extended suspension for a paperwork issue a couple years ago. Are you shocked by this?
No, I'm not shocked. I wish I was shocked, but this is par for the course with things like this. BYU self-reported in both of these instances.
Don't self-report.
Got the hammer dropped on them. Got the hammer dropped on them, whereas Louisville is, skittish and not exactly, being forthright about all this, and they get the proverbial slap on the wrist. So I don't get it, but I understand. I'm not shocked at all. This makes sense because this is what has happened for years.
Yeah, not shocked as well. It was an issue with the connection with Adidas. Kansas actually suspended Bill Self 4 games and one of their assistants. He'll miss the Duke game. You know who the 5th game is for Kansas? It's Southern Utah. So good luck to the Thunderbirds once Bill Self comes back. In that one. No, not surprised. Disappointing as always with the NCAA. You don't have to self-report.
Right.
Come on.
Hey, you're just talking. No, you don't have to self-report. What we do want people to do is watch BYU men's basketball in their season opener on Monday. Not an exhibition game, Jarom, an actual game at the Marriott Center.
Hey.
As the Cougars host Idaho State and former big man Colby Lee. Pregame coverage starts 8 Eastern on both BYU TV and BYU Radio. Tip-off set for 9 p.m. Eastern.
After the break, game notes for BYU and Boise State on a game day eve as we hope to see more Isaac Rex tomorrow. This is BYU Sports Nation from Boise and Provo.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Maersk, your e-commerce logistics shipping partner.
If you're looking to build your brand awareness and increase market share as BYU moves into the Big 12, this is the place, BYU Athletics. We can provide the tools you need to make sure your company is seen and heard. BYU Athletics is where you can align your products and services with loyal fans that cheer for our Cougars. And they can also help your business win. Learn more about what a partnership with BYU Athletics and your company will look like. After all, this is the place. Email sponsorship at byu.edu today.
State.
Slap!
Slap! Meow. Is that bad?
That's pretty good.
I love it!
Wow, you're good.
Everyone says that.
Call me the champion.
Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation here in Studio B from Provo and Spencer in Boise. Great to have you with us. It's time now for game notes. Let's get after it. Hashtag take note. That's the Utah if you've been keeping score at home. Game note number 1 for me. Boise State's defense is ranked in the top 12 in points, yards, third downs allowed, number 1 in the country in passing yards allowed and first downs. They're really good. Third downs, 28%. Just, hey, great defense. They haven't played a tough schedule, but hey, that's good defense. And that is game note number 1. What you got, Spence?
Now you lead me into my first game note, Jarom. You mentioned the strength of schedule. Boise State, out of 131 FBS teams, 119th in strength of schedule. A close win over Air Force is probably their best victory. They played a good Oregon State team, not much after that. So while their stats have been eye-popping, 119th in strength of schedule is not great, which is why we have a question about how good they really are.
Okay, game note number 2 for me. The Bronco offense isn't crushing it. 360 a game, 5.4 yards per play, but they've scored 30-plus in 5 of 6. Their defense sets them up nicely. New quarterback Taylon Green, he's a game changer, 6.8 yards per rush. They're not chucking it or rushing it for 200 a game at all, but they're plus 80 in the second half. So that defense sets them up, and then quality special teams. It's not that explosive, creative, crazy Boise State offense you're used to, but their defense is actually setting the tone. And like Petros Papadakis told us, their identity has changed mid-season.
Yeah, how about that? As the world turns, now Boise State's a defensive squad, go figure. Tomorrow's game between BYU and the Broncos marks the 13th all-time meeting, and we should not overlook the fact that Boise has, frankly, dominated this series, Jarom. They lead at 8-4. A win tomorrow would be better than 2-1 over BYU. The Cougars, I mean, they've got a lot of respect in their program. They need to win this for a number of reasons. Boise has dominated this series 8-4.
Yeah, the last of an incredible series. It's been awesome. Okay, and former Cougar, I say the last. Well, for now, we'll see. Former Cougar player and assistant coach Kelly Papinga is the co-special teams coordinator and edge coach. Hey, what's up, Kelly? He's going to be on the sidelines. You got to go say hi for me.
Absolutely. And you know there's still some love for BYU and Kelly, so I absolutely will find him. You better believe he's not going to take it easy on BYU and Kalani Sitake, though. Okay, the road team, by the way, and I like this trend. The road team has won the last 2 games in this rivalry series. Will that trend continue? 7.5-point underdog is BYU. Can the road team do it again tomorrow? This time BYU on the Boise Blue and pay back what the Broncos did as a 10-point underdog last year in Provo.
Those are game notes for BYU and Boise State coming up tomorrow on BYU Radio and FS2.
All right, Jarom, our colleagues Greg Wrubell, Riley Nelson, Mitchell Juergens, and Cleon Wall have all of your radio coverage for the rivalry showdown between the Cougars and Broncos tomorrow. Cougar pregame
And after the break,
begins
Fantasy
at 5
Friday
p.m.
picks. Can I get a win already? This is BYU Sports Nation.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Introducing the truck for adventure. The all-new 2022 Nissan Frontier doesn't compromise on power or comfort. This midsize truck was redesigned to incorporate the latest technology and designs for safety, comfort, and convenience. Plus, with up to 6,700 pounds of towing capacity and best-in-class horsepower, it's rugged enough for adventure and still safe enough to transport all your favorite people. Where's your new frontier? You'll find it at Tim Daly Nissan Southtown and South Jordan.
Here's the thing about BYU Sports Nation. It's a banner that unites fans all over the world. BYU TV and BYU Radio are all about bringing your family events and games live. On air, online, and on the free apps. It's the next best thing to being there, connecting your fandom with others across BYU Sports Nation. Download the apps and get exclusive access to analysis and interviews with players and coaches. BYU TV and BYU Radio, the place for all things Cougar sports. Tune in, join in.
Let's kick off AFR on BYU TV.
What they did in that fourth quarter was not unexpected in my book.
Everyone did their job perfectly, and it resulted in, obviously, a touchdown.
Who knew that he had these kind of hands?
And right at the snap of the football, they both go right downhill. And that was the end of that. He knocked him down pretty quickly.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
Just enjoying.
BYU Sports Station is on demand. Download the free BYU TV and BYU Radio apps. Listen to the podcast, subscribe, rate, and review. And there's always room for a Zamboni on BYU Sports Nation.
Got to smooth that ice out. Let's go. Okay, time for BYU Sports Nation Fantasy Football Friday. Points are awarded on offense for yards, gains, touchdowns. Defensively for tackles, TFL sacks, takeaways, and touchdowns. And for field goals and extra points on special teams. First things first, I lost. Breaking news. I'm going to use the waiver wire, and I'm going to drop Cody Epps out for the season. I'm picking up Tyler Algier, who goes right into my starting lineup. Zach Wilson against the Bills. I need him to do something because he's my quarterback. Ben Bywater's my only defensive player. I start Tyler Algier against the Chargers, who are second worst in the NFL in points allowed. I hope Tyler Algier is getting a touchdown.
Jarom, you're beginning to understand the waiver wire and its full power. I like this move by you. And again, Zach Wilson outscored Jaron Hall last week. Interceptions do not penalize our guys in our version of fantasy football. So Zach Wilson, Tyler Algier combined, I think you got a shot this week, especially if Ben Bywater can come up with, something decent like 8 or 9 tackles. You got a shot here.
Thank you for your mercy.
Jaron Hall could be kind of a weird night for Jaron. We think that now, and I'm being told by our resident meteorologist, Dave Jr. Phillips, that the rain is supposed to stop by noon. It might not impact the game as much as we are thinking, which fingers crossed, because it's going to be cold on the sideline. It's not wet and miserable tomorrow night. But Jaron Hall could have kind of a low-scoring, weird game depending on how much he's able to throw. He's going to start. He's been my go-to guy. I'm throwing in the heat-seeking missile, Fred Warner, to do his thing. And Taysom Hill, I mentioned earlier in the program, I feel like he's got a good matchup against the Baltimore Ravens. I'm starting Taysom Hill as my third fantasy football guy this week.
Let's hope BYU plays well, because if they don't, it's going to be miserable regardless of weather. So, yeah.
Touche.
Okay, our question of the day. Glenn Stockey says he'd like to see Boise State on the BYU schedule again in the future after joining the Big 12. But do you? Jordan Royal on Twitter. No. We need a beatable FCS and G5 on the schedule over here in the Big 12 just to make a bowl game. Amen. And BYU's more often than not hasn't shown consistency in beating Boise. In fact, it's 1 out of every 3, right? 4 and 8. Boise State, the Alabama of the G5s. Well, they used to be. That's Cincinnati. But Cincinnati going to become a Power 5 team next year. Consistent winners even during their down years. Like, this is a down year for Boise State, and they're still 6-2 and may win the Mountain West. So we'll see. At Tyson Peterson on Twitter.
Yeah.
The Boise State game's always fun and competitive. Once we're playing a Big 12 schedule, we'll need a game like that as a sort of rest in between. Agree to disagree. I think you want a winnable G5. You want a team you can pound, not get hurt in. When BYU starts to get hurt, just normal football. Hopefully it's not until Game 3 when they're playing a Power 5 team. And we'll see if that's always Game 3. But it's Utah most years, and then sometimes you might have a Miami, an Ole Miss, a Virginia Tech, a Michigan State. Those are all future Power 5 possibilities for BYU.
Certainly, yeah, and I like the fun Power 5 one-off. I like BYU playing, the likes of Miami. I just want the Cougars to play a mid-tier Mountain West Conference team in that B group game and then throw in an FCS team.
Boise State and a mid-tier. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We're
not named Utah State.
Boise State. And frankly, probably no more Liberty, who, by the way, Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, does Liberty play at Arkansas this week?
I believe so.
Because that is a very intriguing. If the Flames beat Arkansas, do they sneak into the top 16 of the college football playoff rankings?
No.
Have we reached that juncture with Liberty?
No. They wouldn't fly that high, I don't think. No. They have a bird in their logo, so that was a pun, I guess.
The point is, no more Liberties, no more Boise's on future schedules for BYU.
No more Liberties taken. Okay, our elite voice of the day, presented by PASK, Healthcare Elevated. At @PASK_PASK BYU on Twitter. I wonder what they're about. Sure, why not once every 5 to 7 years, but until they get rid of the Smurf turf, don't play in Boise. Well, you ain't playing in Boise anytime soon then. It ain't going to happen. Okay, today's Rise and Shout Out, presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics. It is Tonga National Day. On this day, 1875, the Kingdom of Tonga adopted their constitution. Why do we care about Tonga? Because there's a ton of Tongans at BYU, including the head ball coach, Kalani Sitake, our own Hemahe Muli, and many, many others. Shout out to the homies in the great Kingdom of Tonga.
Hey, absolutely. Jarom, this feels like the appropriate time to wrap up the show because the Zamboni's got to go cut the ice again, man.
By the way, shout out to Hunter Miller. I wore tan for you, my dog. Pulling out all the stops. Thanks to today's guest, Petros Papadakis.
Yes. Conversation continues 24/7 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. This and all of our shows are always available on demand at BYUSN.com. Let me get on the Zamboni, man.
Hey, we're showing a video of that from earlier. That's great. Sorry to Dennis Pitta. We ran out of time for Spencer. I'm Jarom. Shout out to Nicole Warner. Don't forget to join us tomorrow at 5 Eastern for the pregame on BYU TV and BYU Radio. Summon that Tanner Mangum to Mitchell Juergens energy. Starman for the win. Go on. Beat the Broncos.